morning, friends. I'm Sister Marla from St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Perhaps we've all seen a story or read about a story of a parent who invites a number of children for her little son or daughter's birthday party, only to discover that as the party time arrives, no one has shown up. Maybe some have RSVP'd saying yes, they would come and then choose not to come or whatever situation might arise for them, and many simply don't respond. And some actually say, no, they're not going to be able to come or won't be attending. And how devastating that is for a parent to see that sadness, to see that sorrow, that brokenness on their little son or daughter's face. But we also hear of stories where once people find out that no one has come to a party, they begin to show up. I remember reading stories about firefighters who showed up for a little boy and brought food and gifts and took him on a ride in the fire truck, or the Phoenix Suns who reached out to a little boy and invited him to have a courtside seat at a game and then planned a party for him afterwards, or some who had 200 members of their town show up for their little boy. Oftentimes we look at an invitation and decide whether or not it's one we want to respond to, whether or not it's worthy of our time, whether or not it involves people that we would choose to be around. And in our gospel story this weekend, Jesus tells the story of those who invite only their friends, only those who can repay them to the party, hoping that they'll continue to get those reciprocating invitations. He also reminds people when they come, don't take the places of honor. Don't try to make yourself look important, but rather do just the opposite. Find the lower place, the more humble place. And to those who are doing the inviting, he says, remember to go out and invite the poor. Invite those who will never be able to invite you back. And when we look at those little children who had the firefighters come, or the Phoenix Suns, or the 200, there's no way that they could repay that other than with a heartfelt thank you. And yet that's not why they did it. How do we accept invitations from others? How do we accept invitations from God? Do we look at an invitation from God and wonder first who it's going to include? If it's something that's going to stretch us beyond our comfort level? If it's something that's going to include us reaching out to those who are outside our circle of friends, or maybe outside our circle of compassion? And would we dare say no to that invitation from God when it involves people that might be beyond our concern? And when we do go to a party, do we do the mix and mingle, or do we only associate with those who are in our circle of friendship, ignoring all those others who could truly benefit from our outreach to them, who could show us another part of the face of God, who maybe could become friends? How big is the table that we have? How big is our heart in inviting people into our lives? Beyond inviting them to eat with us at table at home, do we allow them to share in the meal of life? Do we do what we can to invite them into full prosperity? Do we do what we can to make sure systems invite them into education, into enough to eat, a safe place to live? Do we invite them into our parish? It is the table of the Lord. It is the Lord who does the calling. God is the one who invites people. Do we try to stand in their way? Do we say anything that judges them as unworthy? And how do we look at ourselves when the Lord invites us to the table? Do we see ourselves as maybe being unworthy, but being made worthy by the reception? Do we see ourselves as needing the nourishment of God to become better Christians, better followers in our lives? Friends, it's all about invitations. Who we invite, who we say yes to when they invite us, who we say no to, the ways in which we might even say no to God. And how big is the table of our lives? How big is the table of our opinions, of our political views? How big is the table of our economic status? If we look at that question through the eyes of faith, I know the answer for all of us would be The table has to be enormous. The table has to include all. Those who might invite us back, those who will never repay us, those whom we might not see again, but to let all people know that the invitation to the fullness of life, to the fullness of community, to the fullness of sharing in our own lives is expansive.